Good evening and welcome to the March 8th, 2023 Finance Committee meeting. Committee members present this evening, Councilors Di Natale, Zarella, Van Hazinga, Squalia, and Boschman. Please be advised that FATV is conducting an audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast. I ask that anyone in the audience who is recording this meeting to please identify themselves for the record now by standing and stating their name and address. Seeing none, I ask at this time that all electronic devices be placed into silent mode. The public has been advised to contact the city clerk's office regarding any comments of no more than 2 minutes. There are no prepared statements submitted to me, and there is no one on Zoom. Anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on any matter before us on the agenda this evening may do so for not more than 2 minutes. Please state your name and city of residence and identify the agenda item on which you would like to speak.
Jacqueline Wetchy, Fitchburg resident, speaking on agenda items 052-23 and 053-23. Please vote no on these items. Our legal department, with less to do since we passed Chapter 40U, can take care of 053-23. No need to spend $30,000. Regarding 052-23, the first allocation of our free cash was for pension and post-retiree medical because they're important. Next should have been roads and property tax reductions. Instead, we have hanging baskets of flowers. Keep in mind that flowers in a hanging basket cannot access groundwater, and if we have another drought like we had the past few years, they will die unless you pay someone to go around and water them all the time. We already have better flowers in place, in flower boxes on the ground on Main Street, sponsored by private businesses. We already have citywide spring cleanup efforts by volunteers. We don't need to waste $50,000 on this. The mayor's priorities are wrong. Rather than looking out for the greatest good, he always tries to please his direct reports. This is the start of a drip, drip, drip of every department coming with their palms out for their pet projects. Then our free cash is gone without our roads being fixed or anything being done to reduce our skyrocketing property tax bills. Please stop him in his misguided tracks. The excuse some of you always give me is that this one item won't be enough to make a difference, but the aggregate of wasteful items is material. Please stop the drip, drip, drip of our tax dollars going down the drain and tell the mayor you will not approve any more free cash expenditures until he takes care of our roads and our high property taxes. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to the agenda. 04723, order that there be and hereby is appropriated the sum of $16,750 to be charged against available funds and credited to health expenses, weights, and measures. Letter here from Director of Public Health Steve Curry to the mayor, dated February 16th, states as follows. Please be advised that I am respectfully requesting an order to be directed to the City Council to approve the transfer of funds to health expenses, weights, and measures. The purpose of this transaction is to cover expenses associated with annual testing and sealing of commercial weighing and measuring devices as mandated by the Commonwealth and the City of Fitchburg for services rendered in CY 2022. Director Curry, anything you'd like to add?
Good evening, councilors. That pretty much spells it out. I am proud to announce that we do have an employee now, so we will no longer need to pay for this service annually. It will be covered by personal services in the health department budget.
Motion to approve?
One question.
I retract my motion.
One question.
Councilor
Steve,
Boschman.
you and I talked earlier. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. You and I talked earlier this week about that. I just want to make sure that you're telling me that he's going to have plenty of work to do. If he's not doing weights and measures, he'll be doing something else, right?
Yes, the job has actually several hats. One being weights and measures. We will monitor that very closely to see what the time frame is. Obviously, the inspector has to learn the job.
Right.
But once we get a good grasp on how long it takes to get the job done, we'll have a better idea of how much he can do with the other jobs. But presently, he is, that position has been combined with a landfill coverage at the Scale House, which happened conveniently because our present employee at the Scale House is having a hip replacement. So that individual will be there probably for several more months covering, and in the future when there are days off and vacations. And my plans are also to train that individual for regional services, to have him paid by the Public Health Excellence Grant to conduct inspections in other communities as well as Fitchburg.
Okay. Well, go ahead, Anthony.
Council Squally.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Director Curry, so the state, we have a state inspector that's been doing our weights and measures for, is it the past year? How long has that been happening?
The state took over when the Weights and Measures was actually a department up until 2004. When that individual retired, the position was not replaced. It was contracted with the state. The state just simply does not want to do it any longer.
So it's been a standard that the state does it, but the state's urging municipalities to take on this role.
Correct.
And so our new health employee that is taking on this role, is there specialized training that they have already gone through?
He will have approximately a year to become a sealer of weights and measures, which is a program offered by the Division of Standards within the state.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve. If there are any objections, it's unanimous consent. Seeing none, it's approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Next, we have 04823, an order that there be and hereby is appropriated the sum of $45,000 to be charged against available funds and credited to police equipment and repair, radio repair. A letter here from Chief Martineau to the mayor states as follows. The Fitchburg Police Department is respectfully requesting a supplemental appropriation of funds for FY23. The Fitchburg Police Department's Quarry Tower base station operation requires upgrading. Recently, the police department was required to make modifications to our system. The antiquated copper phone lines that service the Quarry Tower are no longer accessible from Verizon. As a result, our department is forced to transition to newer technology. In addition to the upgrade at our Quarry Tower location, new compatible equipment at 4 additional tower locations throughout the city require upgrades as well. The additional equipment will provide an overlap and coverage for police radio communications. The geographic layout of the city in the past presented challenging radio communications at times. These upgrades will help mitigate these challenges and provide more consistent radio coverage for our police officers. Radio communications is the lifeline for our staff in the field and assist to provide quality public safety services to our community. Chief Martin, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yes, just briefly. Thank you, Councilor. Our two-way radio communication has been in decline for the last 10 years or so. The technology we've been utilizing is roughly 35 years old. We were relying on copper lines through Verizon, and as I said, our radio system has been declining over the years because, quite frankly, the copper lines have been getting wet, taking on water, and we'd have a lot of static in our two-way communications. There was some areas in the city that we knew there just was no two-way communication, which really put our officers at risk. Well, this all came to head this past year when Verizon sent notice to the police department and our IT department that they were going to be cutting, for lack of better terms, the copper lines in the city. And we had to take action and upgrade our system because the copper lines were failing so frequently. So this past year, we started an integration system with the fire department to join their communication through the tower up at the quarries. We jumped onto their system, which improved our communications greatly initially. However, this extra funds here will now replace transmitters in 4 different locations throughout the city, and the 5th being up at the quarries. So we're going to have brand new transmitters in all of our towers, which will create an overlap throughout the city to provide constant, consistent two-way communication with all first responders. This has been a long time coming. I remember in 2015 when I was appointed chief, then Chief Roy urged me to take these steps, and quite frankly, Verizon pushed us through the door, and here we are this evening. So this $45,000 will bring our two-way communication up to industry standards today with your support. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council Boschman.
One question, what took you so long? Why did we wait 10 years? What was the reason when they were doing a complete overhaul, the fire department, and we couldn't tie it in back then?
Well, when they did that, our system wasn't broken. And the old adage, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So we continue to utilize our copper lines. And quite frankly, if Verizon hadn't put us on notice that they were going to cut them, for lack of better terms, we may be been able to push this off another few years. But quite frankly, in the last several years, water was getting into the lines, and there was so much static that it was really creating disruption in our two-way communication. So, you know, we were prudent. We pushed it down the road as far as we could, and we are at a point now where Verizon said you had to do it. And the two-way communication right now is the best I've ever heard it. It's clear, it's crisp, and it's concise, and it's throughout the city. So we didn't do it sooner because there wasn't that level of urgency. Here we are. Verizon was going to discontinue it. Now's the time to do it.
All right.
Council Squalia.
Thank you. Chief, what's the timeline of starting the changeover and completion of all our brand-new transmitters?
So we've already started the process. This $45,000, the majority of it is going towards the transmitters. We were able to cut our connections with the copper lines a couple months ago, which automatically jumped us up onto the tower up at the quarries. We made that. We were taking some money out of our very small radio repair budget in our line item. So we almost depleted that right now in our fiscal year. So it started, and with the purchase of these new transmitters, as clear as it is now, it's going to even become that much clearer with the new transmitters in the different locations throughout the city.
So, 6 months?
Oh, do you mean when it's complete?
Yes.
Supply chain. I wish I knew. We're talking Motorola radios, transmitters.
Will this be all new radios for
Not the portable
officers?
radios. No, we purchase those almost yearly because that technology changes so drastically. Those portable radios our officers carry, they range from $3,500 to $5,000 per unit. And so we just try to buy those incrementally instead of a large purchase. But this will take care of the transmitters and the outlining sites that actually push the communications back to the station, back to the tower up at the quarries.
I got one, my dog ate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move to approve. 4823.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 4823. If there are no objections,
Thank
it
you.
is unanimous. Thank you. 4923, order that there be and hereby is appropriated the sum of $32,721 to be charged against available funds and credited to information technology expenses contracted services. Letter here from IT Manager Bonilla to the mayor states as follows. The available funds is to pay for the upgrades to the Patriot Property software for $23,700, and $9,021 is to upgrade the SQL server that the software database runs on. The current PPS version, Assess Pro, version 4.7.3, has been a problem for the assessors, and the SQL upgrade will also benefit several city databases. At a total cost of $32,721, these funds will upgrade our CAMA database and the SQL server, which are both overdue for an upgrade. Mr. Bonilla, anything you'd like to add to that?
Hello, councilors. Yeah, I think that pretty much spoke for the request. Our SQL server is 2014 currently, which we bought in 2014. So it's at the end of its life. And it's also the database, the backbone for our GIS server and other databases, large databases that we manage. The CAMA data, the Assess Pro, needs to be updated. They're having problems with it. That was bought in 2017, so that's been running its course as well. We're staying with the same company, just moving to a newer version, and we're going to need to upgrade the SQL server as part of that upgrade. It can't run on an older SQL database. So that's the two issues that we're asking for money for.
Counsel Squalia.
So the online, the assessor's database that I would log into the website to use.
Right.
Will this affect the speed and of the way that loads? Because right now it does load a little bit slow. Is this?
Yes, both the new SQL Server and the upgrade should improve that performance, but the performance increase will really be for the internal users. That outside, it'll look more Windows-like, it'll be fresher looking, but I don't know how much it'll improve the bandwidth connection.
So the problem with the server is the assessors are trying to access the database and it's
Kicking them out, locking up, starting to just act like an old, an old software platform, so,
Okay, thank you.
of course.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 4923. If there are no objections, it is approved. 5023, order that there be and hereby is appropriated the sum of $70,000 to be charged against available funds and credited to information technology expenses, capital improvements. The letter here from the manager to the mayor says that the relocation of the city's fiber network from the now privately owned Cherry Street right-of-way to a newly established easement along the edge of the property is what the $70,000 will be applied to. At a total cost of $100,000, the $70,000 in funds will bridge the gap from money that Mr. Bonilla will be using from his FY24 capital equipment line item in the budget. Mr. Bonilla?
Yes, I think everybody's probably familiar with this. I asked for ARPA money last year to try to cover this cost, but they thought it would be better to use free cash. That's why I'm back. Our fiber backbone has run down Cherry Street since we started an IT department for the city of Fitchburg. Unbeknownst to the IT department, the city was declared not needed, and they gave it up to the redevelopment authority. Then we jumped in and said, hey, we need an easement there. That's important. We have infrastructure in the street. Then it sold to a developer, so now we're back at it again. What we're asking for is an easement from the current developer who is about to sell it to a new developer, and I want to get in now so we can get this easement. And what we're hoping to do is only have to shift that conduit over about 20 feet to the edge of property. So what we would do is we'd build the conduit, we'd dig, get the easement granted, dig the new trench conduit, and then over the weekend we'd shut down the network and reroute the fiber. So that's the game plan.
Counsel Squalia.
Do we know when the city conveyed Cherry Street? It was a public way and we conveyed it?
We declared it surplus at some point back. It was the previous DPW commissioner who did it. I do not have the date on that. I apologize. But it was, 7, 8 years ago.
Oh, it was Lenny
It's been a
Laxo?
while. Yeah, it was Lenny Laxo, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't recall that coming before us proper.
Don't think so.
Counsel Van Hazigen?
Just to provide some clarification there, because I was on the planning board at that time, it was part of the proposed development of CVS. It initially involved multifamily above the store and with stretching over to parking in that north section of the lot. And the process was the street was abandoned, and when that happens, it reverts to ownership on either side. Where the ownership was on both sides, it just went to that property. That's the issue. But again, have to pay attention to the details. It's something I wish we were aware of back then and had paid attention to, and we could have avoided these problems.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is I don't think it's going to be any different. It hasn't cost us more because of it. It's just been stress on my part because we have this fiber that's critically important to the city that's going across private property. So the only stress has been mine, but the price difference I don't think is that much difference from back then to now. It's just getting it done and getting it moved and protected. So.
Is this that empty lot behind CVS, and where that proposed multi-housing units are going to be? Okay,
Yeah,
so that's why. Okay,
And we came up I believe it was Daniel Street by Hotel Raymond, and then cut across Cherry because there was no underground infrastructure at the time 15 years ago. Now the road's not ours anymore. So.
Counsel Boschman.
Just want to make, I hope we have better communications and make sure you tell us we communicate better, because $70,000 is a lot of money. To me, $70,000.
Absolutely, yeah.
and that's State Street. Daniel Street's in my ward.
Oh, sorry, Daniel Street, I apologize, yeah.
So anyway, that's the only thing I get upset about, is this lack of communication of what's going on and when we're doing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the only, I mean, everything else, all their other fiber is in the public way. This one just, I can't imagine any other location that our fiber is that it's going to be a problem in the future. Unless we, declare Main Street surplus.
Sounds to me like this would have happened no matter what. But I think because it's been vacant for God knows how long, now that there's actually going to be development there, we have to address it.
Yeah, and honestly, the development's more important. We just need to make sure our fiber is protected.
Yep. Councilor Swally?
And so this is a right-of-way. Is there no way that we can just kind of protect our fiber lines and still allow us a legal access without having to spend $100,000 to move it however many feet?
That is an option. The problem is that I think we're going to run into is that if we ask for an easement for the current conduit, it's out in the middle of the future development. It's typically they'll give you an easement close to a property line where they can't build anyways. I'm just assuming that if they give us an easement down the existing Cherry Street location, then we're good to go. Yeah, we won't need any of this.
Maybe, go ahead, I'm sorry.
But so where is the fiber line in the Cherry Street exactly? It's hard to see from them.
I made a map. I didn't know if you guys got it or not, and it's kind of a dark map. But Cherry Street is probably about 40 feet, 50 feet from the south property line. And it's probably on the north side of that street, closer to the middle, but to the north side of that street. So it's probably 50 feet from where it would be more, where they would, I'm sure they would prefer it.
Yeah, this line. So it kind of runs down the center of Cherry Street?
The red line is an indication of where it is. It's just north of the center line of the street at that point.
And so...
Yeah,
so, I mean, that would be...
Oh, yeah.
In the potential developer could be a driveway that
Oh, yeah.
could possibly
absolutely
maintain that line as it is without having to spend
Absolutely.
$100,000.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Potentially. I mean, there's a possibility, yes.
So if we approve this 70,000, will work start immediately on this, or is this kind of a hold?
Just the
a hold in
easement.
place? Oh, the 70,000 is for an easement.
No, we will work on the easement. If we could get the easement in place, then the 70,000 might not be needed. But if the thought is that they're not going to allow it, they're going to give us the easement, 30 feet, 40 feet over, closer to the property line, because you don't typically get an easement through a future development site. It's usually pushed to the side. So this money will be in place when we get that easement, if it is to the side. We will try to get an easement right where the conduit is. If that's the case, then the money will come right back to you guys. I mean, we won't need it.
That sounds like the best.
Yeah. That is, but a developer that would reduce the value of the property in some aspect, I would think. I hope not.
In theory.
But my intent is to try to get the easement where it is first.
Thank you, Trevor. Okay.
You got it.
Can we, so knowing that, why don't we just wait to know what we can do? Why are we going to, I understand the proactive nature of this, but I'm hard pressed to not support this until we get a definitive idea of what we can achieve for an easement. If we cannot, then I have no problem having this coming back to us and appropriating the money. But if we can, why appropriate it all? I know it's going to go into your budget, and the mayor can then transfer it out if it's not going to be needed. But that's just a question that popped in my head about why are we going to support this if there is still the possibility we will not need this. So,
May I speak to that?
okay, so I've got Ms. Murphy here. I know Council Vina. Go ahead, Council.
I was just going to speak to what you said.
Yeah.
If that's all right, Trevor.
Okay, of course.
That putting the money in place allows the project to proceed whenever it's ready. If it's not appropriated now and it's going to be appropriated at some later date, if that later date should happen to be July, when we have a new fiscal year, we don't have free cash available, and so now we're starting to look for where do we get $100,000 to do this. So by putting the money in place now, it's there for whenever a decision is reached on moving it.
Will that get encumbered into next fiscal year?
The idea would, yes, it would be encumbered into next year.
And if it's not used next fiscal year, it
If
can
it's
be
not
moved?
used, it would be closed out to free cash.
Right, but closed out the free cash for fiscal year '25. If we hold it over to '24 as an encumbered expense.
Correct.
It will not be free cash for FY '24, it'll be free cash for FY '25.
Correct.
So we won't get that money for 2 years.
Correct.
Okay, we'll just
But,
wanna make
correct.
sure. I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay, so, let me, Director Murphy, would you like to comment, please?
If I may, thank you. I think the concern here is that the building itself that is to be constructed may be built on top of Cherry Street. So if we, and we won't know that until Mr. Krikorian, the current owner, sells it to the new developer, and they have a 6-month P&S, which I believe was signed in December, so it won't go to a close until likely June, and then it'll be sometime after that before they start construction. So it may be a while before we actually know the answer to this, because we're not working with the prospective developer, we're working with the current owner of the property.
Council Van Haziger?
So the plan that was approved for the site includes a building that is located on the present location of Cherry Street. It does include parking in a lower level off of the grade of North Street, so it may not be feasible to keep or it's likely not feasible to keep the easement in place, and it probably will have to be moved.
Yeah.
Plans could change, but the plans that is approved that they have on paper already is located in this area.
Right, and I apologize, I'm not privy to the development at this point. I don't think a lot of people are. I just know that this fiber is mission critical to the entire network, not just to fire. So I need to protect it. I need to make sure that that is protected from development.
And so nothing is built yet, but every indication we have is that it has to be moved. So we do have to start acting and start planning to move it.
Council Zarella?
Thank you. Yeah, I would support moving on this now because it's worth trying to get an easement in the current location, but it is very unlikely. This would be the kind of thing that would be a red flag for a purchaser if we tried to tell them that they're going to have a utility easement running right down the middle of the property so that they would have to develop around it rather than being able to develop over it. So I certainly would encourage us to continue to pursue that possibility, but I think it's a low enough percentage possibility that the advantage of having the funds appropriated and ready to move forward faster outweighs the very marginal chance that we might be able to keep those funds unencumbered.
Yeah, I mean, the only drawback to this, from a timing perspective, given the likelihood that it will be required, in the event that it isn't, I just wanted it to be clear that, yes, if it's not used, it goes back to free cash, or it gets repurposed. But with respect to free cash, it depends on when the money is not needed. If it's not needed before the fiscal year closes, we can get it back for next fiscal year. But if it carries over in the next fiscal year, we won't see that money if we don't need it until FY '25. But I understand that
And I can come back
it's a
before you.
likelihood that we won't have that scenario at all because it's going to be required. But I just wanted to make it clear that
Yeah, that makes perfect
if it's
sense.
not used, we'll get it back. But the question is, just so people understand, we may not get it back for 2 years. So that's all. That's it.
I will come back before this group, this board, prior to the end of the year and let you know, we'll know right away what we can do now.
Okay.
But I will keep you guys in the loop on what's going on going forward.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, let me tell you something. I just want to tell you, if we do get that cash back, we'll pay some bills with it. We won't spend it on something else, so we can knock down the debt. All right?
That'll be the mayor sending us a request.
I'm just letting you know.
Yep.
Move to approve 5023.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to approve 5023. Are there any objections to unanimous consent? Seeing none, it's approved.
Thank you.
Last item for IT, 5123. Order that there be and hereby is appropriated. Is this the last one for IT? Yes, it is, for today. Appropriated the sum of $126,310.92 from Reserve for Appropriation PEG Access and credited to Information Technology franchise fee for the purpose of paying FATV for franchise fees received during the fourth quarter of fiscal year '22. So we've already received the first 3 quarters, so this is just the last quarter for FY '22. Recall that because of new state regulations, the money's got to go into the IT's budget, which then it gets transferred to FATV. It doesn't go directly to FATV anymore, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so this is just the fourth quarter payment. We've already approved the first 3 quarters, so this is just the standard pathway that we have to take here.
And going forward, I'll be coming before you every quarter, every time this money. I want to get it to them as quickly as possible, so.
Councilor Squalia?
Trevor, the 520,000 amount, that's the total year 22 PEG funding,
All 4 quarters, yes.
all 4 quarters?
Yeah.
And does all of that 520,000 get transferred to FATV, 100% of that?
100%.
Just as a pass-through?
Yep. That's the 4.5% PEG funding, yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you.
From Comcast and Verizon.
Comcast and Verizon, it's soon negotiated again.
Move to approve 5123.
Second.
Motion made, seconded to approve 5123. If there are no objections to unanimous consent, it is approved. Thank you.
Cheers. Now you're free.
5253, order that there be and hereby is appropriated the sum of $50,000 to be charged against available funds and credited to community development downtown cleanup. Here is the letter to the mayor on this one. Downtown beautification. Dear Mayor DiNatale, thank you for your continued leadership and strong support for making downtown Fitchburg an attractive and vibrant place. 2022 is a very strong year for downtown in terms of the transformative projects that were completed as well as other projects that have advanced. The conversion of Main Street and Boulder Drive into a 2-way thoroughfare was completed in June of 2022. This $4 million project implemented pedestrian improvements and significant upgrades to our downtown public parks. The next phase of the Fitchburg State Theater Block development launches with the reactivation of 4 vacant storefronts along Main Street. Private development is 60 new up and down Main Street, from the former Harper Furniture Building at Moran Square up to 805 Main Street near the Upper Common. Recently, businesses like Tacos Tequilas, Mexican Cochina, the Moran Square Diner, and the Break Bike Shop continue to draw positive attention to the city's revitalization. Importantly, there are additional new businesses coming to Main Street in 2023, including Rise and Grind Cafe and Smoothie Bar, Dario's Ristorante, and Popper's Pantry, and Mama Juana Restaurant. Along with these new businesses are existing downtown businesses such as DeBonis Florist, El Bohio Restaurant, and Devarney Jewelers continue to thrive. To complement these efforts and to celebrate our growing downtown business community, In-Town Fitchburg and the Fitchburg Redevelopment Authority have entered an agreement to implement and manage a 2023 downtown beautification program in coordination with City DPW, City Community Development and Planning, and the Mayor's Office. This effort will include targeted seasonal cleanup, planting of mulch beds, sidewalk vase planters, and hanging baskets, weekly landscaping activities, and weekly removal of debris and detritus from sidewalks and alcoves. In an effort to harness this momentum that has been years in the making, the In-Town Partnership is requesting $50,000 from the Mayor's Office to implement the Downtown Beautification Program for 2023. For your reference, I have enclosed our program budget from 2022 for illustrative purposes. An attractive downtown Main Street is a rising tide that will help lift all boats. An attractive downtown also sends strong market signals of good municipal governance and community partnership. And our goal is simple yet widely shared: to create a welcoming, vibrant downtown for residents and visitors alike through cleanup and beautification of the public realm and increased pride of ownership reflected by property and business owners. Let's continue to work together to invest in Fitchburg's rebirth. The city and its anchored institutions will continue to invest in our Main Street, and downtown beautification will attract further business and private sector investment. Sincerely, Joe Ferguson, Executive Director, In-Town Fitchburg. I have Mr. Ferguson is here with a presentation, along with former Chief of Staff to the Mayor, A.J. Torigny, who is now at Fitchburg State. I keep forgetting, you're a Special Projects Manager?
Assistant to the President's fine.
Okay, Assistant President. And, of course, Director of Community Development and Planning, Liz Murphy. Mr. Ferguson, if you'd like to proceed.
Thank you very much, Council. And thank you for the Mayor again for continued leadership in working on making downtown Fitchburg an attractive and vibrant place. We've made some headway, guys, as reported in that letter. Here's the partners that we've been working on kind of all things downtown revitalization for a while. Specifically around downtown beautification, in 2020 we began speaking with the city's community development planning, the redevelopment authority, the university, and our state partner at the state level, Mass Development, who is encouraging these things, who has eyes on our downtown as well as our downtowns throughout the Commonwealth, and they are promoting these types of vitalization activities. My goal is this year and next year is to have some private partners on our partnership list as well, and that's a goal of ours. For tonight, I want to share quickly some context and some reasoning on why we think downtown beautification is so important. What we're trying to do with InTown is focus on alleviating our vacant storefronts. We're focused on making downtown as a community gathering place for all, and we're focused on events. And by the way, we've learned by studying best practices in other communities across the country, this is what downtown convening organizations focus on. As part of this, we interviewed our stakeholders, everybody from the mayor to the President Lapidus, to Elmer Melendez, to Manny Santana, all our small business owners, and they said the same three things. We want small business support, we want events, and we want an attractive, physical built environment in this district where we have chosen to locate. So again, we started in 2020 partnering on this idea. Our goal was to get to a budget of $50,000 for annual cleanup through the federal CDBG program. After due diligence and much studying, we determined that that was not feasible in a good fit, which was unfortunate to us, but it's just a fact. We pivoted, decided to move forward. Through that process, in 2021, we thought we'd launch a pilot. Although we didn't have our goal of $50,000, we were able to work with the mayor's office, community development planning, on a $25,000 pilot test of this. What did that involve? We were able to hire a local contractor who has landscape architects and arborists on their staff. They are the professionals. What they do here, they did seasonal cleanup on both ends of the season, spring and winter. They do dark mulch, perennials, weekly maintenance, weed control, and watering that first year in 2021. That's what we accomplished in 2021. Last year, in 2022, InTown, through its state partners and our anchor institutions here, submitted a grant to the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development and was awarded $70,000 for downtown beautification. That's what I'm saying. These state agencies have our eyes on us. They want to fund this stuff. Unfortunately, we tried again in 2023. We were not awarded again. We had been to the well once in 2023. Let me back up a little bit what we were able to accomplish in 2022. We did all of the contracted work from the pilot, but since we had more money, we expanded the scope. And what I'm talking about last year is probably the most noticeable. Along with Albert's Road conversion to two-way, we did the beds from the front of CVS all the way to the Upper Common, all the existing permanent plantable beds. That expanded scope was $50,000. So the extra $20,000 in 2022, through grant monies, I was able to purchase our self-watering urban vases, 6 of which are out here in front of the legislative building in City Hall, 15 more on a loading dock. We're ready to go with those in 2023. And we also purchased self-watering hanging baskets for our new light poles to complement the roadway. Those were not introduced. They are on a loading dock. They're purchased. They're durable. They have warranties. We don't have to think about those capital purchases for a while. So again, unfortunately, the EOHED grant was not awarded this past year. And given kind of the conversations around this, we thought it was the right time to go upstream a little bit to partner with the mayor's office, work with Liz, and try to do this again more in partnership locally. Now, the goal is that list of businesses that came on board in 2022, we've got some more coming in 2023. The idea is to induce more businesses downtown. Firms make locational choices on where they want to locate. They want to be in a nice district. If they want to be in an urban downtown district, they want to be in a safe, welcoming, tidy, vibrant, welcoming environment. We are hopeful, as we've seen in other models throughout the country, this induces more small businesses coming into our brick and mortar storefronts, reduces our vacancy rate, and really is for the community too. This is about dignity. This is about cleanliness, tidiness. We think flowers are apolitical. We're talking about a tidy, welcoming downtown, and that's, I'm grateful that we're talking about it at this level and at this partnership level. We believe this will induce more private investment. We are working on fundraising to sustain this in future years. We're coming to you all to help infuse this year to deliver on what we were able to do last year and look forward.
So I'll start. Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, you're still going?
I just wanted to, I don't have any more words, but I just wanted to show what we were, just some examples. This is all Main Street in Fitchburg. These are the 40-gallon self-watering vases on the left here that we purchased. Again, we've got 15 more in stock for approximately 20 in total. Those are the permanent beds that we hit with the dark mulch. By the way, we looked at the pocket park right here, which Rollstone Bank manages. It's right on the edge of City Hall. And we said, that look is beautiful. So that's kind of how we based the dark mulch and the colors off of that to complement that. These are also Fitchburg last year. Again, permanent beds. This is a shot from an event at Mill Street, the middle one. And then we happen to be blowing up the Civic Days duck the same day that the vases were delivered. So that's an important photo to me. These next ones are stock photos. The company we bought was able to purchase the durable vases from. It's called Earth Planter. They're endorsed by Main Street America, which is a national organization that works with downtowns all across the country. It shows that these do hold water for self-watering. They hold for 3 weeks. We check them every 2 weeks. This picture on the right is more kind of what we look like in the spring and summertime out here, but I just wanted to show you what the potential could be if we wanted to go bold with some other plants that can handle that too. And then this is the spec on the hanging baskets, and here's an example from Seattle where the potential on how that could look. So I just wanted to show those photos. I apologize for interrupting.
My question, Mr. Ferguson, is since this is a new endeavor we're embarking out of our municipal budget, available funds, this I assume will be going into the community development budget. Has there been discussions with the administration on, is this going to be, it is a recurring expense. We're not just going to do it this year and then not do it next year. So my question is, in terms of future funding, I know you said this is the infusion, this is the starting point, but what about next year and the year after? Are we going to keep using city tax dollars to fund this endeavor every year at $50,000, or is the goal to have it lessen and lessen with more private fundraising and more ownership of the downtown business community taking some of this on to assist you, or is this kind of like a new line item now? Basically, are we going to see this like in next year's budget, is my question.
I can say the overall goal is to induce pride of ownership and private business support to come into this. We are not there yet this year. We've got some new businesses. We've got some more coming on, but we're still not there this year yet. If we can continue to show that the partnership, and more specifically that the city is committed, I am optimistic that we will be raising private dollars to help fund this.
But are the organizations going to push for that? You're going to be focused on doing that?
Absolutely.
Not just say, you know what, we got $50,000 this year, Mayor will just give us $50,000 next year, and the year after we don't have to do anything. in terms of attaining additional
That's not
dollars?
our goal, and
Okay.
I know this is a little bit high level, but we think this will induce. For instance, I'm having conversations with some local companies now. Bill Larson at Micron, he's interested in this stuff. He wants to see it. That's just one example.
Yeah.
But the idea is to induce that and then have their buy-in, their dollars, their skin in the game for their neighborhood.
Show what it's going to look like as like a marketing technique.
Prove and show,
And then
to
they'll
try
see
to bring
it.
them along.
Okay.
Councilor, may I add?
Yep.
I'd also add that our granting, the granting opportunities that we seek through the state, they also, I mean, I don't believe this will ever go away. I think this is certainly a future conversation to have with the administration in terms of how it's going to hit the budget. But the granting institutions want to see stake in the game by all partners. It's not just local businesses, but they also want to make sure that the municipality has an effort into this as well. So when it comes to writing urban agenda grants and going to the one-stop application process, they're going to see equal parts between private business owners, the municipality, and then their half, the state, to help entice that growth. So I'd venture to guess that over the coming years, having conversations with the council in town and the mayor's office on how the best practice will be, but this will certainly help set that precedent.
And so this 50,000 is going to, what time frame does this 50,000 cover? Is this going to be from April through September during the spring and summer months,
April
or?
through November, because
November.
the opening activity, the seasonal cleanup is very important, but also the closing weatherization in terms of not leaving dead plants in the ground, cleaning up the mulch, cutting the lines again, just sending it into winter is very important. So that activity would be the last activity to take place in November. The soonest, we were ready to go in mid-April last year with my grant funds and the contractor. It's just that the frost was not ready, so we had to wait till like the first or second week of May. So that's when they start, as soon as the frost subsides.
And is there any volunteer organizations or that you partner with that do any volunteer work, pro bono work,
Yeah, I'm building a relationship with Rotary East, and I'm actually speaking to them just about this in a couple weeks in terms of offsetting some of our watering costs. They have a watering truck. I just met with the president, Polly, this afternoon, actually. We think they're going to be able to help offset some of this year by watering the self-watering assets that require a 2-week hit. So yes, there is volunteer, but in terms of doing this whole project on a volunteer basis, based on experience, it becomes very unwieldy. There becomes less clawback when a volunteer does not water something. There's a benefit in having the professionals do it.
I agree.
Yeah, but there's always room. Hopefully this induces more civic volunteerism as well. I'm in a lot of conversations with Laurelwood Garden Club who maintains that, and so we keep them in the loop based on look, color, and they kind of give us you're heading in the right direction. So yes, I'm building those relationships. I expect more in the coming years.
Okay, my last question for now is to Ms. Murphy. Are you requesting in your FY24 budget a line item of this in this regard, or?
There is not currently a line item in my FY24 budget for this.
Are you requesting one, though? You know how there's a request call?
I did already submit my budget to the mayor's office, and there isn't a request in there.
Okay. All right, Councilor Boschman was first?
I'll yield the chair. Let them go first.
Okay, we got two over here.
It's okay.
Okay. Councilor Zarella?
Thank you. I just wanted to say I like both the concept and the funding model, or at least the proposed funding model. I was actually talking with Mr. Ferguson the other day, and I think it is not just a benefit to the city to get the investment from the private businesses, but also a benefit to the private businesses. Like he was saying, give them a sense of ownership over the downtown area, a sense of investment, a sense that it's their space to take pride in and maintain. And just off the top of my head, I can think of several businesses. I'm not going to name them here because I don't want to put them on the spot. But I can think of several businesses both downtown and throughout the city who are just civic-minded, who would be interested in getting involved in this, whether through a monetary donation or organizing employees to volunteer. There is a lot of civic spirit in the business community in Fitchburg, and I think we can definitely tap into that, such that our share of this expense and effort will decrease over time. Like Mr. Trigney was saying, I don't think that our investment should ever be zeroed out, because we are still one of the partners in this. But if we go down to, $10,000 and the rest is between the state and private, that's a very reasonable expense for what we're getting out of it. And lastly, I'll just say I think those planters are kind of cool. I've never seen that design before, but it looks very nice. Actually, one quick question. You said they need to be refilled every 2 to 3 weeks, and then they'll water during that time. During that time, will they refill from rainwater, or is it a sealed tank that has to be refilled manually?
Rainwater will help, but it won't refill. It'll help the plants on top. It won't help us fill the tank.
Okay.
So the specs say check 3 weeks. We had a tough summer last year, and because of the drought, we were doing them every about 2 weeks, just to be sure.
So 2 weeks still. That's pretty cool.
But that's not every week. That's
right. Exactly.
There's an efficiency built in there.
This is getting a little into the weeds, but it just occurred to me, and I figure I'll ask while I've got you here. Are you planning on having it set up so that it's like a once every 2 weeks pass of the entire system, or just do it kind of on a rotating basis?
So think of the two things. Just for the planters and the baskets, those are 2 weeks. The contractor would maintain. If there's an issue with the flower box, if there's something damaged, that's their responsibility on a weekly basis.
Gotcha.
If I can skip back to some of our permanent, already existing plantering beds, the contractor's hitting those on a weekly basis.
Okay. So basically, it'll get done scheduled on a 2 week basis, but if anything were to come up, if we were to have like a heat wave during a drought or something, they'd notice that the flowers were starting to wilt and they'd add more water sooner.
They're here every week during the planting months.
All right. Very cool. Thank you.
Councilor Squalia?
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. So your letter notes that there is an enclosed program budget for illustrative purposes, but we didn't get that budget. So the $50,000 that the city is putting into the downtown beautification, what portion of that is related to the entire budget for downtown for 2023?
That is the budget. That includes all the cleanups on both ends of the season, the weekly maintenance, sweeping.
What organizations? Oh, thank you. What organizations are paying the $50,000? Is it 100% the city of Fitchburg that is paying for the?
That's our request this year.
Right. So the extent of the downtown beautification work, it goes from where? In Moran Square? What point?
We didn't go all the way down to Moran Square yet because we know that there's a lot of activity, both private construction and potential some road improvements. I think we should wait on that. We went as far east as the traffic island that I think basically ends in front of CVS.
At North Street. Yep. And then it goes to the Upper Common.
Correct, to the intersection right
there. To the
there.
End of the Upper Common, or?
DPW manages the Upper Common, and it looks beautiful. They're able to do that along with some volunteer. Rotary waters the boxes. That's already been addressed. We're trying to complement that, so we stop right at the Upper Common.
The right intersection, essentially.
Oh, right at like the Historical Society?
Academy Street.
Nope, 1 block past. I'm sorry, Workers Credit Union. The Lightware Workers Credit Union that's our bound. on the west side.
Okay, and because I like the downtown beautification, I want it.
Yep.
But, you know, we have the Main Street, River Street, you know, roundabout that.
Just further past.
Right,
Yep.
just beyond the Upper Common that has been historically non-maintained by anyone. Volunteers have tried to maintain it, but it's a lot of work. And then, especially when you extend down River Street, you know, in front of the practice field for Fitchburg High, and then extending, you know, to the business Lucy's Upholstery, it needs regular maintenance. And in 2021, when we approved the $35,000 or $25,000, I know Councilor Boschman was very adamant that Tom would work on funding for the River Street flowers, but it hasn't been done yet. And so it's not going to be done in 2023. So, you know, it's a lot of work for volunteers to expect that stretch to get done, especially, you know, just labor alone, but then the plantings. So
I think that section is something we should look at. I drive by there pretty much every day. We didn't plan for that for tonight, but I do see that as an opportunity. It's something we can look at, you know, as, you know, going forward. But
yeah, and especially,
I hear you that's a concern.
Yep.
We necessarily didn't plan for that.
Especially with our new restaurant and, you know, business that are investing in that area. We have a new property that we tore down before, so there's an opportunity there. And then we have that whole vacant lot that could be redeveloped into something very large. So, you know, extending something out there to entice property owners, I think, should be on community development.
That is, I think about the gateways to downtown, and I think the big one I think about is Water Street Bridge. But now talking about this, that's a gateway too, and that's something that I need to take a look at.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, this year or 2024, we will be getting a new River Street Bridge. So maybe that's the time
That's the impetus.
to implement it. So the hanging baskets were purchased in the last year's $70,000 grant.
Correct.
So we purchased the hanging baskets already.
Correct.
And those hanging baskets do those last 3 weeks too, or just the giant planters?
They both last 3 weeks. They're 22 liters as opposed to 40, but the plantable surface area, the water holds it for 2 weeks to water that plantable surface area. That's a little bit counterintuitive, but that's the way they're designed.
So the bulk of this $50,000 is going to pay the contractor to water the plants, to buy the plants, to plant the plants,
also maintain,
and then
on a weekly basis, watering. So the beauty of having a contract is we can hold them financially accountable to the work. Because in a drought like last year when we did this with grant money, first off, they're very responsive, and they know how much intensive watering that takes. So, yeah.
And so we planted originally when we put those islands, when we put those islands in, I don't know, 10 years ago, there were a large amount of perennials. And we had those blue, purple salvia, I think there were some daylilies, and, you know, what is the perennial focus versus annual focus? Because annuals are very expensive, they're beautiful, but they're very expensive, and we're going to need to maintain that year over year.
Absolutely.
Whereas if we can focus on a perennial heavy plantings, then hopefully we can wean ourselves.
I hear that, and that's that's what I'm thinking too. But also that's what the landscape architects are thinking as well. After we tested it for a couple of years, is that another reason again we hire the contractors? They know the soil, the alkalinity, and what plants work and don't work. So as long as we're in that, we have opportunity on color, on annual versus perennial, as long as it works environmentally and as long as our money is good on those plants. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It's like, it gets down to when you're finishing a new home. That's when we're talking about paint on walls, finishings, things like that.
Okay, continuing on downtown beautification, we have the flowers, the baskets, flower-centric. We're cleaning up some of the trash weekly.
Yep.
In the
Last year
alcoves
they
and
did it
the
on
sidewalk.
Monday evenings when downtown is kind of quiet, and they did some machine cleaning of hardscape surfaces where there's stains, or even in alcoves, they would machine clean when needed, but they're always cleaning on Monday, at least last year, it was Monday evenings when it was a little bit quieter.
So Monday evenings, we're expecting trash cleanup on Main Street from Upper
Not trash
Common,
removal, not maintenance of trash cans or dumpsters,
litter.
litter and sweeping of the public realm.
Okay. And so on the trash portion, I believe it was 2021, we approved a petition for trash cans, new trash cans and additional trash cans to be located on Main Street. There's a statistic, if you can see a trash can, you're more likely to walk to it. But if you're walking and you have trash and you don't see one, people throw it right on the ground. So that was a couple of years ago, I believe, that we approved that, and that was community development had the plan to put new trash cans on Main Street, but I don't think that happened. So that should be a focus of community development in town Fitchburg, of fixing up the trash cans that we have, but also replacing them with trash cans and additional trash cans, so that litter doesn't accumulate from people that don't want
Don't make
to
it to the
walk
trash can.
too far with their litter in their hands, I guess.
I guess I'm curious if were trash cans purchased?
Was it an appropriation request?
So we put in a petition for new trash cans. Tom said, actually, new trash cans are in the plans, in the community development plans and whatever budget, whatever plan. And so we approved the petition, and I believe that was 2021, somewhere around that time.
Might this have been part of a plan for Main Street, like the reconstruction of Main Street to two-way?
It was probably around that time that we...
I have to do some research. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. I have to do some research and find out what happened.
Yep, but that should, I would like to see that as a focus on our downtown beautification, in addition to pretty flowers. Will the flower beautification area extend to Mill Street and Cushing Plaza?
Correct. Yes, and I failed to mention that, but we did that last year too. So I'm sorry I failed to mention that. The focus is Main Street, but also those nodes that we're improving. So Mill Street absolutely was including that. Cushing Street wasn't done yet, but it'll be included this year.
And are we putting hanging baskets on the new poles?
No, those are Main Street centric for the new light bulbs. Yep.
The hanging baskets are for the Main Street poles?
Correct.
The Main Street existing poles?
I believe there's poles.
The new light poles have arms.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Black ones.
There's the one here.
And does this beautification plan include any of Boulder Drive, beyond just the nodes from Main?
The only thing Boulder Drive related is like this intersection Boulder Drive, so we did not do anything planting related on Boulder Drive.
Okay, thank you.
Could we get, I know it's in the documentation, if I could get that back, please. Can we get this distributed to the council, because this was not in our packets, this working budget?
Absolutely.
It was on the tables last night.
Should have gone to the council last night.
Oh, I didn't see anything in front of me. Okay.
That was the plan.
It was on the table last night. That's what it is.
I've got copies.
I don't recall getting one. Maybe I don't recall seeing it when I sat down, but okay.
We're all excited about your new seat.
Yeah. All right, I'll just, all right. So, Councilor Boschman?
Joe, you and I talked, but I want to Israel. We're doing a major project down here on Boulder Drive, and we're doing a major project up here a year later, up here, water mains. And I noticed on that picture up there, we have a lot of, not the planters, but we have a lot of vacant areas where we plant flowers on the ground, and they run water lines to these places so we can eliminate the guy going around it. I talked to Joe already about that. Well, we get the ground open, it would be cheaper for us to run the water lines to take care of these, what do you call those islands that are all grass and have flowers, not basins or that.
I mean, like a sprinkler system?
Yeah, like a sprinkler system, because I was telling him, I've been into communities when I went to work and drove down there downtown. Nobody came by. They had at a certain time, at 5 o'clock in the morning, the sprinkler came up and it would water the ground for a half an hour, then it go down. We know that. But I talked to you, and I'm very serious. I understand you want partners in Fitchburg, and so don't I. But when I drive up in the city of Fitchburg in the middle of winter, and I see the and that, you're telling me you want a partnership? I don't see no. And you get businesses on your street. Now, every storm that I have seen on TV on Channel 5, Marty Walsh used to come out and used to tell the businesses, you have to shovel your sidewalks. This year here, and last year, and the year before, they weren't shoveled downtown. And there's a high traffic foot people walk downtown, and they had a heck of a time getting out, which is not right. I don't mind working with you guys. I get no problem working with you guys. And I understand the very importance of beautification of downtown. I understand that wholeheartedly, because you're trying to sell the city. But I won't tolerate and I won't give if the businesses don't want to do something on their fair share. Not just give us a few $100 for flowers. I'm talking about cleaning up their area when it's in the wintertime, cleaning up in front of their store when the wind blows the dirt in front of papers and boxes and everything else, and you want the DPW down there. I don't think that's right. And if I seem kind of angry, I am kind of angry about the whole thing, and I think a lot of you should be angry. When you drive up Main Street, you see trash in the doorways.
Councilor, if I may, through the chair, of course.
Well, wait, are you finished?
No.
No, he's not finished. I mean, would you yield, Counselor? Or?
I'll yield.
Okay, go ahead.
AJ talk. I'm not rude.
Well, no, I'm not going to let them interrupt you. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead, AJ.
Councilor, I would just say, I think this conversation's been going on well for the past 8 years. And if you look at the tax rolls from we started this conversation in 2015 to 2023, you'll see an overall investment downtown that has been adding to the tax rolls, and I think a lot of people have been taking ownership. It's a slow process, I agree, but between 2015, when we drove down Main Street, and between today, I think there's a lot more pride and ownership happening in downtown. I get what you're coming from, but it's not an overnight thing, and it is an education process. And the director kindly reminded me that last year that the city took efforts to do that. And I think it's this isn't solely an in-town thing. In-town is a downtown maintenance organization to help assist businesses and residents through the three things that he events, technical business assistance, and beautification. It's a coordinated effort amongst the council, the mayor's office, certainly in town, and every stakeholder on Main Street. It's just not solely in town.
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying. I agree 100%. But we're also missing one very important area that nobody ever talks about, and that would be Lunenburg Street, where the vast majority of businesses are still there. They never folded up. And they're still thriving. And no beautification ever happened from John Fitch Highway up. None whatsoever. And you don't think Slattery's would like to have some planters and flowers and different kind of shades so people will want to go down there? Or the loft down there further down and different businesses? You got a big job in front of you. I'm going to tell you something. I agree 100%. It's a partnership. You won't hear me fight. But you will hear me fight. You will hear me fight if the people on Main Street don't want to help out. Because this is not a one-way street. Because I got Clegg on that I'm supposed to worry about.
And Councilor, I totally agree. But those folks that we've been talking about along Main Street that are investing, they are helping out. I mean, you talk to one developer, one building was $1.7 million. Another developer, $1.3 million. You talk to the universities investing $75 million. I mean, this is a lot of money that is helping out. I think that we're dealing with a mix of previously vacant storefronts owned by distant landlords, and now we're slowly converting over to landlords that live and invest in Fitchburg. I mean, Nick Pelletier, for an example, he may be in Westminster. He's a Fitchburg person, St. Bernard's graduate, built an HDIP project off of Blossom Street, just recently bought another block on Main Street. Manny and Rosario bought the Hub International building. Look how beautiful it is. They're out there today putting up new glass. They just bought another block on Main Street across from the library. It takes time, and I think a lot of these people are helping out.
Go ahead, Mr. Chair, I'll let you
Well,
talk.
yes, there are instances where you will drive up Main Street in the past, and you will see, there's a couple of spots. Again, when we talk about downtown, I don't like talking about it in a broad brush. There's a couple of spots, I forget the location down the street here, where it's a very deep entryway.
Right.
Off of the sidewalk, and it's vacant. And there's a lot of trash accumulation there. All right, in terms of like walking down Main Street and see, I lived on Main Street for 5 years. I didn't have to skip over trash everywhere and everything like that. There are a few spots, like any other downtown. I'm not saying that that's an excuse. I'm saying, let's be real in the context here. A lot of these areas that have those issues are vacant. And as Mr. Trigney said, a lot of those vacancies are from these absentee landlords who think they're sitting on gold mines, but yet they haven't done anything with their properties in decades, and yet they still think they're sitting on gold mines. So we're seeing the amount of investment up here, right here, downtown, Dario's, and so I think with the added interest in downtown and with these new storefronts coming online, it should assist in reducing the amount of litter and unsightliness in many of these places. Because now more people will be down here, which will encourage more investment. So there are catalysts that are taking place throughout. Downtown is a significantly large downtown. You know, everyone talks about, you know, the land of milk and honey next door, where, you know, everyone goes there as if it's heaven on earth. Their downtown is this big. Ours is this big. Our downtown is gigantic.
Easy.
Again, I'm not making excuses. It's the reality of the situation. There are a lot of investments taking place in downtown, but then when you take it overall, yeah, there's still a lot of vacancies. But there's less vacancies than there were 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 15 years ago. It's coming back slowly, but surely. And I'll give you back the floor, Council. I just was thinking, I agree with you. The business community has to be invested in this. There's no question about it. This is not a one-way street. And you know, I remember the former owner of Shacks, or the manager, Kent Burgo, he'd be out there every day sweeping, picking up trash. You know, obviously we want to encourage that kind of behavior. And I think with more investment and more activity, it will foster that encouragement. It will foster that involvement. I don't think this is pie-in-the-sky wishful thinking. I think it'll be infectious. And so, you know, when we talk about volunteers and we talk about, you know, assisting the business community, the problem with volunteers is...
It's old.
Right, exactly. And I'm guilty of this myself. We see it in parks. You know, the parks, I see, the parks are the same way as downtown. You can have volunteer organizations take care of these islands or these parks, but then as you see over time, the volunteerism starts to wane. People lose interest, people move. Not every volunteer group, but there's not enough of them. So we have encouraged volunteerism in downtown. We have encouraged private ownership in downtown. Before 2021, we were doing that. But then you saw periods during the summer where the plants were getting watered, this wasn't getting, the beds weren't being maintained, and then what happens? The residents look at it, they go after us, say, why are you letting these places fall apart? And so what does the city do? They end up using city resources, DPW, like these guys don't have enough to do, but water plants and pick up trash. So I am willing to give this a chance because this is new. He mentioned 2021, yes, but the expansion of it. You know, with Riverfront Park and the amphitheater, with Crocker Field renovations, BF Brown, there's a lot of stuff going on that would complement this nicely. So I want to see how it plays out. If we do this, and I see in like throughout the summer, the plants are not surviving, they're dying, you know, things aren't happening, what we say. I know Mr. Ferguson will certainly take accountability, as will the Community Planning Office, but I want to see it play out. If it doesn't work, if we visually see what are we getting here, what's going on, then we revisit it the next year. But we haven't done this before, so I'd like to see it play out as a pilot. Continue, sir, if you want. Sorry.
I'm not against, I already told him, I was going to support him.
Yeah.
And he was surprised. I thought he fell off the floor. But anyway, I don't want you to forget about Lunenburg Street. To be honest to God, I don't want you to forget about Lunenburg Street. I can understand if I own a business down on Lunenburg Street, I would feel like I'm abandoned and all we're doing is focusing on the downtown and nothing's getting done on Lunenburg Street. And there's a lot of thriving businesses on Lunenburg Street that you could probably do a lot more if there was beautification and all that down that way. And to be quite frank with you, I consider Route 2A more of a gateway to the city of Fitchburg than I do Water Street, to be quite frank with you. Because you're coming up Lunenburg Street, there's only one place you can go. Either you're going to Lincoln Street, the side street right after Slattery's, Kelly Street, the other one, and taking a left. But most of the cars come right up, and they come right up Main Street. So what better way to sell the city if you had Lunenburg Street more decorated and prettier for all the businesses, and as you came up here, they'd say, wow, am I in the same city of Fitchburg? And Boschman's is not complaining? He must be pretty good. Because I believe in a partnership, and I'll tell you, you won't get this much from me. I don't even mind if we did contribute every year, because it's a partnership. And we have to sell the city of Fitchburg in beautification. But I want a partnership, and I mean partnership. I don't want to say the city over here is going to take care of it. Don't worry about it. I believe that once we're doing the water mains over here and down there, we should be putting runoffs in so we can have automatic sprinkler system that come up. And we don't have to worry about them making sure they get watered. And as Councilor Squally said, not the flowers that die, they come up every year would be nice, and some of those other flowers. Because I looked around and you just don't see all flowers, you see, especially in Medford Square. Absolutely. It was beautiful down there. They got a big island and they have it watered and it comes up beautiful. I seen it. And I like beautification. I said, wow, that means the people care.
May I respond? Councilor, I completely agree with you on Lunenburg Street and these other spurs off of Main Street that we need to be adding over time. We're applying for a MassWorks grant to improve Moran Square, and that if and when we receive that grant, so fingers crossed, that would be a good catalyst to then take this initiative further. That intersection needs a lot of work. We also need to do some water line replacements, I believe, right there too. I'm not sure if it will happen next year or in a couple of years from now, but I think that's the great opportunity to then be moving beyond the end of Main Street onto Lunenburg and onto Summer Street a little bit and connect to the other development projects that are happening there. So we have new housing development that'll be happening on Lunenburg Street. It's a perfect time to make those connections and get down to Slattery Street, Slattery's restaurant. Not Slattery Street.
Kelly Street.
Yeah.
On that note, Chair, Mr. Chair and people, I told you I give you my support on this one, but I'm going to watch this year for your merchants. My patience run thin. I want them to maintain their sidewalks in the wintertime especially. Not the city come down and put a plow in there and just do a little 3-footer. Maintain them. They want my help, and we want their help. It's a two-way street, not a one-way.
It's a two-way Main Street, too.
It's a two-way Main Street. We did it that way. One way didn't work. That's why we got it two.
So on beautification also, let's remember now that next year, according to Commissioner Erickson, all of Boulder Drive is getting repaved with the ARPA funds. So that'll beautify a great deal of Boulder Drive with that new pavement with the walkways, the sidewalks that are completed. So that'll get repaved with federal ARPA funds next year. Main Street, unfortunately, it sounds like it'll be 2026 before we repave that. Why? Because we've got gas line replacements, water replacements, and sewer replacement separation first. Then we can repave it. And so that's not until 2026. That'll add to the beautification as well, because a lot of people, obviously the road is in rough shape, especially towards the Moran Square area. So that'll be a huge boost, but unfortunately we're 3 years out from that. So I just want to throw that out there, because I know I'll get some comments later after this saying, you want to talk about beautification, make the road nicer. It's in the pipeline. It's just we've got to do all these infrastructure projects first before we get there. I had Councilor Zarella and then Councilor Van Hazinga. Councilor Zarella.
Thank you. First, I just wanted to briefly note that this is another place where, and either Ms. Murphy or Mr. Curry, correct me if I'm wrong, but this strikes me as another place where our new code enforcement tools will really come in handy in dealing with, I think it was the Rome's building that the chair was talking about, with the very deep alcove where trash accumulates and so forth and doesn't get cleaned up because it's an absentee landlord. In the past, we haven't really been able to do much about that because they're an absentee landlord. They're hard to get at and expensive to bring to court. But if they start seeing their tax bill going up by a rate of, $300 a day for code violations and so forth, they'll probably hire a manager to clean up their property once a week or once a month. So I think that's something that we're going to see gradually improving, even in the spots that are currently troubled. But beyond that, I absolutely agree. There's a lot of other areas of the city that are important to beautify for business development and so forth. But I think we're on the right track in that it all starts from here. We're more or less at the center of the city. If you look at the ward maps, maybe not geographically, but population-wise at least, we're more or less at the center of the city. All the wards come to a point at around City Hall, roughly. But so if we start from here and then expand outwards as we're able. As we have a bit more funding, we extend down Lunenburg Street, we extend down Summer Street, Water Street, Boulder Drive, any other street you can think of, like those, you watch those animated maps where you see the colored line spread like a spider through the different, veins and arteries and everything. I can see this spreading from Main Street throughout all of our other corridors. If we manage to finish Lunenburg Street, we start working our way up John Fitch, and so on. But we've got to start somewhere. And downtown is the place to start, because even though in recent decades it hasn't necessarily been our economic hub of the city, we've had more businesses on John Fitch and so on, it is the place that visitors, whether casual visitors or investment visitors, this is the place that they see as representative, not only of what Fitchburg is all about, but also of our attitude towards our community and towards our business development. So we lock this down, we get Main Street gleaming, and it will spread. It'll spread because we'll have less to do in downtown to fix it up and can repurpose those funds to other areas. It'll also spread because, like we've been talking about, we'll continue to get more investment from our private partners as they see their prospects improving, and as their bottom line improves, they'll have more to contribute. Again, granted I'm a little biased because of the family company that I've grown up with, but I really do see that when Fitchburg takes care of its businesses, those businesses want to then take care of Fitchburg. So I see this as a first step, and I think everyone else here does too. This is not our sole goal. We're not neglecting the other areas of the city, but if we just scatter our efforts far and wide, what we'll wind up with is unnoticeable improvements across the whole city, as opposed to, you know, a really impactful difference that can build on itself. And that said, I am fully in support.
Councilor Van Haziger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think if we want the city to be successful, we have to manage perceptions of the city, both within the city and externally. And the perceptions of the city, for a large part, are shaped by downtown. As Councilor Zarella mentioned, that this is the face of the city, is our main street. And that's where a lot of perceptions are formed as to whether or not we're successful, whether or not we're inviting, whether or not we're competent in managing the city. And an important part of having a successful downtown is to have a beautiful downtown, one that's taken care of, one that's attractive, one that's inviting. And I think this is a great effort. And I think the work done last year really showed. And it was very impressive. I thought the downtown was beautiful. Main Street was very well done, and it was very well maintained. It wasn't a large investment that then was left to dry out and rot over the course of the year. There was constant maintenance, and it looked just as good in August in those hot days that it did in May when they first went in. So we've seen that it works. I'm glad that we're continuing this program. I wish we could do it in all the major gateways and nodes in our city. But if we have to prioritize, because we only have so many resources, this is the best place to do it. This is the best place we get the bang for our buck. So I'm glad this is continuing, and I strongly support this, even if the city itself has to kick in some money this year to make it happen.
Very quick. I'm sorry. One more. I'm done. I'm very quick. Very quick. I just wanted to, it wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say this, but the president constantly and always says, so goes the city, so goes the university. And over the past 8 years, President Lapidus, working with Mayor Di Natale, the town and gown relationship has really proven a point in the redevelopment of Main Street. So President Lapidus wanted to offer his thanks to the mayor for offering this order, and certainly the council for your support. And then finally, I would say, for the 5 or 6 years that I worked for Mayor Di Natale, the amount of trash that ended up in the back of my pickup truck, because he would constantly walk around, every time him and I drove together, he would walk around and put trash that he saw on the street into the back to make sure it was properly disposed. So there's no larger advocate for cleaning up trash and making sure that there's a beautiful city than our mayor. So thank you very much.
Move to approve 5223.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 5223. If there are no objections, I'll take this on unanimous consent. Seeing no objections, it's unanimously accepted or recommended.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. 5323, order that there be and hereby is appropriated the sum of $30,000 to be charged against available funds and credited to community development expenses, contracted services. This is with regard to the Twin Cities Rail Trail Phase 2 title search and appraisals. The purpose of this is to complete the title searches and appraisals of parcels along the Phase 2 portion of the Twin Cities Rail Trail. Phase 2 of the rail trail connects the current end of the rail trail at 4th Street along Railroad Street, crossing the river and train tracks, and terminating next to the MART Intermodal Station. Both temporary and permanent easements will be required as part of this phase. Performing this work is the beginning of this process. And that was from Director Murphy to the mayor. Anything you'd like to add?
I think that pretty much sums it up. We do need to do a title search. We need to appraise all the properties. Some of the easements might be temporary, but there may be a few permanent easements that are required as a part of the completion of the rail trail Phase 2.
Councilor Zarella?
Thank you. I just wanted to address the contention that we could do this through the legal department, because it's a valid point to raise. There are two misconceptions, I think, that need to be addressed there. One is that the legal department doesn't have a ton of time or resources freed up by our new municipal hearing officer and so forth. The reason the hearing officer was important was because the legal department hadn't had the resources to do these things in the past. So they still don't. They're not actually clawing back any of their time or money. It's just that now things they weren't able to do are going to get done. But also, title searches are a fairly specialized discipline. Any lawyer, given enough time, could pull off a due diligence title search. I've done them myself. But there are people who do title searches for a living, and they are much better at it. And appraisal is a whole different ballgame. There is no one in the legal department or in any law office that I know of, except maybe one dedicated exclusively to large real estate transactions, who is qualified to do easement appraisals, because it's not primarily a legal issue. It's a financial and real estate issue. It's a lot of things, but it's not really a legal issue. So yes, if we were able to just take this on in-house, it would probably be preferable, but neither we nor any city of our size that I'm aware of has the in-house resources to do this. So in order for the rail trail to go forward in an efficient manner, and importantly, I'll note, in a manner that doesn't wind up with us in easement valuation litigations like we've seen in the past, we need to bring in the professionals on this.
Councilor Squally?
Thank you. So the Phase 2 connection for the rail trail is extremely important to the rail trail's success for Fitchburg, but also to the downtown connection, just fundamentally to access the rail trail. Right now, in order to access the rail trail, especially if you're on a bicycle, there's really not a safe legal way to get from Main Street to the rail trail comfortably. I mean, you'd probably have to go up Summer Street. That would probably be the best bet. But still, it's a long route that people wouldn't like to take generally to commute. So we have to do this Phase 2 work. It's imperative. And then, we use that to get the further funding from the federal Massachusetts funding source, whatever that is. But the connection to the Main Street, I think, is also highly important to the perception of the comfort and the safety and the desirability of the rail trail. So bringing it to Main Street by the intermodal with something that is vibrant and signage and flowers, beautification, whatever it needs to be, I'm not sure exactly, but that area right now is a little barren, right, in front of, across the street from the Mart. So if there's something we can look up in the title there for that area, I would like to see that happen. I think that's also crucial.
I think that is in the plan.
Councilor Zarella?
Thank you. I would agree. I would just point out that I think that also falls in under the umbrella of stuff that we probably have to wait for the private development to finish down that end of Main Street, since there's going to be a lot of ongoing construction, and I'm not sure that anything we were to put in that was at all prone to damage or degradation would handle heavy construction activity next door all that well. It's possible, but I think we might, if we're already planning to do a larger beautification effort in that section once the construction is done, it might make sense to do it all at once while we've got people out and working and so forth. Just a thought. But I do agree that, having that connection be attractive and prominent, not, as opposed to sort of just the end of a trail, is good. And I'm sure you've already got plans for that or are thinking about it, but I do agree that that will be an important component of people's perceptions of the rail trail effort and therefore their perceptions of our downtown.
Right. We have been thinking about the best location for a welcoming entrance, which I think is what you're getting to, is the entrance from Main Street. Yes. And I absolutely think it makes sense with timing. We'll have to see how timing plays out with potential Moran Square redevelopment and the rail trail redevelopment, or phase 2. The rail trail piece, to some degree, is a little, well, both of them right now are out of our control because we don't have a MassWorks grant yet for Moran Square. We are beholden to MassDOT for the timeline for the phase 2 and the rail trail. But I would like to point out that on April 5th, there is tentatively a MassDOT presentation on Phase 2 with 25% constructions. It'll be in the evening. I believe it's 6 o'clock, but it could be 7, so don't hold me to that. We will make sure that we get the information out. This is the third date that MassDOT has given us, so this is tentative, subject still to change from MassDOT.
Understood. There's no predicting the state sometimes. I yield the floor.
Council Bushman?
I talked to Kelvin about this earlier. I was going to vote against this on the rail trail, and I'll support this, but I want to make it very clear, because the last time when I voted on it before, when Larry Casassa was there, he came in front of it. The DPW and the city of Fitchburg is not going to have to maintain that rail trail. Am I right?
That's correct.
That's right. So they plan on putting a bridge over the tracks. So they're not going to ask the DPW in the wintertime to go up there and clean the bridge. Are they? They'll be doing it. It's all self-sufficient?
The actual bridge, I don't know how that will be handled, but I don't believe DPW would be the keeper of the maintaining the bridge, at least the cleanliness, the snow. My understanding is that the Twin Cities Rail Trail Association has been fundraising, and that they have at least sufficient funds for a time to maintain the railway, the rail trail, and I think they're even looking to acquire, or may have already acquired, a machine that will plow the snow in the wintertime.
Okay, because I'll support it as long as I understand that the men at the DPW or the city of Fitchburg is not going to be held accountable for maintaining that, because we can't even do what we have right now with the amount of men that we have. And I know they've been hiring men, so don't get carried away yet. So I just want to make it very clear how I feel about it. Okay? Thank you. I yield the floor, and I'm going to support it.
Move to approve 5323.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 5323. If there are no objections, I'll take this under unanimous consent. Seeing none, it's favorably recommended. 5423, order that there be and hereby is appropriated the sum of $10,000 to be charged against available funds and credited to community development expenses, municipal hearing officer. This is in relations to the 40U legislation that was passed last year. The hearing officer will conduct ticket appeal hearings twice a month and write decisions related to those appeals. The draft job description for this position was included in our packets. Ms. Murphy, anything like that?
We're looking at this position as a stipended position. So that should reflect the fact that it's not going to be, say 20 hours a week. It's as needed based on the cases. So we may see it initially on a lot of cases if the Board of Health and the Building Department are able to increase their ticketing, and then I think it'll level off after a while. So this amount is meant to get us through the rest of the year.
Just out of curiosity, is there a reason why this isn't in the code enforcement budgets?
It
why
can't be.
Okay.
The municipal hearing officer can't be in the same department as the enforcement that's coming in front of them. They have to be a neutral party because the inspector may be one side of the table and then the landlord the other side of the table.
Council Squalia?
So for our municipal hearing officer that receives the stipend, Can we have multiple municipal hearing officers that are available to us as needed, and then provide stipends for them as they are on call to
I
different
hadn't
hearings?
considered that. I guess I'd want to talk to the administration and HR about that. I don't see why that couldn't happen, like having a backup.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
if it could have, we had three hearings officers that were available whenever and received stipends, then if one dropped off, we wouldn't be scrambling.
Yeah, that's a
kind
good
of
point.
thing.
Yeah, there is a certain amount of training that they do need to receive, but I don't think it's a high bar. It's really about writing decisions.
Thank you.
You said the 10,000 was to cover through June? Or,
Yes, we were just estimating to get us going, and to be honest, when I wrote when I was thinking 10,000, it was a little ways ago, and it just took me this long to get this in front of you. Just juggling a lot of different work right now.
do we know when this will begin? When will we start having hearings?
Well, we have to hire somebody, so we have
Right.
to post it
Yep.
and hire, and then I think once we get them on board and a little bit of training, I'm hoping that within 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did we say, I don't think I saw it in here. What's the rate? What are we offering for a rate?
It wasn't in the job description?
Did I miss that?
$200 a month plus 80 a case.
Yeah.
Compensation stipend, $200 per month plus $80 per case, okay. Hours will be 6 to 8 p.m., 2 evenings per month, plus an additional 4 to 10 hours weekly on a flexible schedule based on volume of appeals. Okay.
So that is an estimate. We haven't done this before, so we're taking our best guess based on other municipalities.
Will there be an analysis done on a payback rate, payback to the taxpayer? Because I didn't support the 40U legislation for reasons I've already stated, but now that it's a reality, one of the selling points was the amount of, not that this is the motivation, but obviously with more of this taking place, there may be more of an influx of revenue to the city from this. Is there going to be an analysis of how much we're taking in that covers this position in a way? Because, I mean, if we get a lot of hearings, we have a lot of issues, we may have to get more money for this person. And so the trade-off for the residents is, well, we must be getting more done in way of enforcement and collections because of this. So
Yes, I think there needs to be an analysis, and it needs to happen on a periodic basis. How are we doing?
Okay, everybody raised their hands, so I must have said something, Brad. Well, Council Boschman was first, but Council, can you wait 1 second? Did Council Zarella or Van Osga, you're raising your hands at the did I say something that wasn't accurate?
No, nothing inaccurate.
Okay. Is it from what I said?
It is, yes,
Okay.
if you're willing,
Same thing,
Counselor.
what you said.
Okay, so do you mind, Counselor, if I yield to him for a minute? Just
I don't know about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Council Zarella?
Thank you, Counselor.
Go ahead.
So, no, I just wanted to note that based on the rate that we just heard, $200 a month plus $80 per case,
Yeah, that's,
if there is one case in a month and it is not a successful appeal, in other words, the fine is sustained, that pays for that, because are they all $300 a day fines, or do we have a variable rate on some of those?
Some things are variable, but I think a lot are $300 a day.
Right. So on average, one case pays for the monthly fee, and each case pays for 3 or 4 other cases if it's not a successful appeal.
right.
So-
My point with what I said was, while that is correct, the volume, because someone might say, well, we're going to get that $300 anyway. We just won't get it faster. So I just wanted to, You're correct with your math. I just, there's a benefit to this that we were sold on, multiple benefits. So I just want to make it clear that it's not that these wouldn't have gotten collected without this hearing officer, but it would have taken a lot more time and a lot more laborious process, and we may not even be successful with it. I'm just trying to explain to the residents, there is a payback for this. This isn't just a $10,000 or $20,000 new part-time position where we're in the red 20,000. It's being paid for largely on its own, but also a lot of these fines and fees that we're going after would likely not be going after as quickly and not even as successfully if we weren't doing this. So there is a trade-off that exceeds the expense.
Right.
The benefit exceeds the expense.
If I may?
Go ahead. Yeah.
So, I'd actually say even more so. I'd double down on that, because not only will we be getting faster results and more successful results, there are an awful lot of potentially assessable fines and fees and so forth that we haven't been going after at all, because we knew it would be a money-losing prospect for the city. So even just on a financial level, it will enable us to go after violations that we weren't even equipped to go after before, which then also has to me, the much larger advantage that these violations will actually be getting penalized and dealt with, which will, clean up some of the blighted areas of the city and, make sure that everyone who is gaining a benefit from owning property in the city of Fitchburg is also living up to their responsibilities to the city of Fitchburg.
If I may, I just want to point out, I think ultimately the goal is to improve the quality of housing in the city of Fitchburg, and finding folks that don't comply that's just a tool.
Councilor Brochman?
Yeah, well, I just want to make it very clear to you, because the way you talk, this is not the way I was explained to me when I sat over there. This is not supposed to be a money-making thing for us to go after. That's the way I understood it. The only reason why we're doing it is because it's taking too long to go to court, and then we're losing out on the court. It would take 2 months to go to court. By the time they get a judgment, we say, you didn't cut your grass. Now we get the first frost in September. What grass did we cut? It's all dead. So I understand that, but I'm hoping the city doesn't use this as a moneymaker, because I'll be very, very upset, because this is going to be a moneymaker.
I agree with you, Counselor. That wasn't the point of what I was saying. What I was trying to intimate to the public is the money that we normally miss out on or we aren't successful at obtaining through the normal process and how long it takes. The payback is the fines that we are supposed to be collecting will come in faster and more efficiently and with a higher success rate. Not that we're going to then raise our fees or our fines intake tenfold, but it's going to come in faster, be more impactful, and more successful than if we were going through the normal process that we've been going through.
All right.
So that's all I wanted to make clear to the residents. Not that this is going to be a boon for the city's coffers.
Because, Mr. Chair, what I expect, and I really expect, that we don't have a lot of people with a lot of money in this community, that we work with people too. Because I'll give you a prime example. When I was a kid, my father didn't have a lot of money, and I can remember the city turning its back on a lot of things. They could have came and shut the house down because we didn't have a fire escape. Some of the windows were broken. But they worked with us because he had a large family. So I expect that to help out, to be working together hand in hand, not just say, this is it. You're incomplete, and you got 30 days or 80 days to fix it, or else you're going to get a $300, $200 fine every day.
I think the inspectors currently work with landlords, and based on their means.
I know from not personal experience but professional experience that our inspectors divisions, they want to work with the residents. Mm-hmm. They some cases give second and third chances. You know what I mean? And then this is, as it was said at the meeting, this is for the real bad apples that are ignoring it repeatedly. This isn't a first infraction or even a second. They try to work with them. So yes, I agree.
All right, I make the motion, we accept.
Counsel, before you do that, we got
Oh, sorry.
You don't mind.
Councilor Van Hazinga?
Don't worry, I'll be real quick.
No, go ahead. No.
I'm like usual. But I just want to really emphasize that the fines are not the goal. Fines are a tool to compel compliance with the rules. And what this program does is where the real savings are is it allows Mr. Curry's health inspectors to actually be out inspecting properties, to addressing issues, that they don't have to go to Worcester and spend an entire day in housing court for something that gets rescheduled to the next week and then have to go back. Or to go and find out, oh, well, it's wintertime, the grass is gone, I'll waive the fine now, it's not applicable. This is allowing the health department to do their job to make sure that we have safe apartments, that we have well-maintained properties, and that we are able to enforce the rules we have in the books. That's the important part. It's not a money-making scheme. That's not the goal. It's not the intent. Fines are a tool to get compliance, not an end to themselves. So, if you'd like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that we accept.
I'll second your motion.
Motion made and seconded to accept 5423. If there are no objections, I will take this on unanimous consent. Seeing none, it passes. Last item on the agenda, 5523. Order that the City of Fitchburg approves the expenditure of funds from the New England Foundation for the Arts Grant in the approximate amount of $10,000 for the purpose of said grant, which is to engage an artist in the creation of temporary banner art on the facade of Fitchburg Cultural Alliance's Main Street Studios, which is right over here at the corner of Main and Grove Street. The letter here from Ms. Murphy to the mayor says that the city was notified of an NEFA Making It Public grant award in the amount of $10,000 for the purpose of administering a call for temporary public art. The city intends to use these funds to engage an artist in the creation of temporary banner art on the facade of Fitchburg Cultural Alliance's Main Street Studios. We anticipate the banners will be installed by June of 2023. So, Ms. Murphy, anything to add to that?
Yes, I mean, I think that's exactly what it is. So we're looking for artists to provide a digital rendering that would go on to 8 banners that would hang over the brick columns on the Main Street Studios, which used to be the Fidelity Bank across the street from us. So the art would be digital, and then a sign manufacturer that manufactures banners would actually do the banner manufacturing based on that art and then install it. So it's not a large project. It's $10,000. We were able to get this award. It took a little longer to get this project moving than we anticipated, but here we are.
Councilor Van Hazinga?
So I understand the architectural style of that building may have been stylish at one time, but I don't think it's aged very well. So I'm excited about the opportunity we have to do some public art there, because I've really been appreciative of the mural program we've had downtown. I think it's done a lot to really liven up and beautify the space. I think this is a great public canvas, and I'm interested to see what the proposals will come in. I support it.
I'll second that.
Councilor Squalia?
Yes, I support this totally, but in our packet of information, we have the request from the city and the request from NEFA, but I don't see, I assume that Fitchburg State University is giving permission and Fitchburg Cultural Alliance wants this, but we don't have any actual documentation showing that.
So you don't have an MOU between them, but the Fitchburg Cultural Alliance executive director and I have worked together to create this call for art, and I have been in communications with the university through AJ Trigney to understand what the limitations of what we can do there. So the Fitchburg State is okay with us they gave us very specific instructions on how banners can be affixed to the brick facade. So we have very specific instructions to give to the banner company. And we did get an estimate from the banner company already with those instructions, just so that we'd have an understanding of how much the cost would go to the banner company versus the artist for the design.
And we'll scale down the project as we need to in order to fit the $10,000 budget. Is that the plan?
Correct, although I don't know that it will need to be scaled down from what we propose it to be as 8 banners that are affixed to the brick facade across the street.
And my next question is the temporary nature of them. What is the definition of temporary? How many years?
So NEFA says 18 months.
18 months. Does that mean they need to be removed after 18 months, or they expect them to last at least 18 months?
At least 18 months. Okay. And I think it will be up to the university, Main Street Studios, and the city to decide whether or not they remain. I think that's just going to be based on what they look like. If they're still in good shape and everybody still likes them, they could probably stay for longer.
Okay, great.
Make a motion to approve 5523.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 5523. If there are no objections, I will take this under unanimous consent. Seeing none, it passes. And before we adjourn, councilors, Councilor Van Haasega, you wanted to...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a quick announcement. Today, my youngest son, David, turns 11, and I wanted to take an opportunity to wish him a happy birthday and also to apologize for missing dinner tonight. I know he's enjoying some pancakes, of course, but I'll be home shortly in time to help watch you blow out the candles. Thank you. I love you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
On that note, my daughter turns 13 tomorrow.
Oh, nice, nice. Happy birthday to her as well.
I turn 20 tomorrow.
20?
At least pick a number that we can believe.
Move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. If there are no objections, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.